Last time, we trudged through the sewers of classic Ninja Turtles movies, which makes it sound like I didn't like them when I phrase it that way, but they were pretty good. But I hate leaving a job half-finished when there's still two left. 2014 and 2016's live-action TMNT films offer a completely different feel and vibe than the originals. And it seems that they're pretty strongly disliked by both Turtles fans and general audiences. I haven't seen them in a while, and it feels like it's time to take a look back at them and see if they're really as bad as everyone says, and if maybe they have some redeeming qualities. Should we give the modern live-action Turtles another chance? Let's find out! I recorded most of the script while I had a throat infection, so sorry if that sounds terrible. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Raid Shadow Legends!
Fun fact, there are 7.5 billion humans in the world that could be playing Raid Shadow Legends right now. So why waste time? You might as well start right now. Completely free to play with over 80 million downloads and 650 unique champions, there's never been a better time to pick up Raid. Love experimenting with cool mechanics and team compositions? Raid lets you put your mechanical mastery to the test by crafting your ideal team of champions, customizing their builds with the best artifacts, choosing their masteries, and then putting them to the test against Raid's many tough bosses and challenges, or even real players. Learning all about my champions, studying the enemy's teams, and crafting the perfect arena team is occupying most of my time with Raid at the moment. I love constructing a strategy that is hard to counter, tweaking my team's stats so I always go first, and then researching ways to deal with whatever is the current arena meta. For those who enjoy digging into stats, you'll have an absolute ball with Raid. Raid's got something extra special happening right now. They've released a legendary champion based off MMA and pro wrestling legend Ronda Rousey. Yes, the Ronda Rousey. You can get Ronda for free right now, whether you're new or a longtime player, just by logging into Raid. All you have to do is log in and play Raid for 7 days between now and February 28th, and Ronda's yours. That's all there is to it. To celebrate Ronda's arrival in Raid, use the special promo code RAIDRONDA to get a bunch of helpful stuff perfect for leveling your Ronda up so she's at the top of her game. Also, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can get exclusive rewards in Raid right now. But there's more! New players, use my link or scan the QR code right here and get a free starter pack worth almost $30. A free champion Tyrell, and also this cool in-game loot. You'll find your rewards here in your inbox for the next 30 days only. See you there. Now back to the video. With modern Hollywood blockbusters, you can tell pretty much any story you can imagine in live action. But back in the 90s, a series like TMNT had some serious roadblocks that prevented it from being as big and creative as its comic and cartoon counterparts. Its main premise may be fantastical and intentionally a bit ridiculous, but it's just inside the realm of reality that it wouldn't take an impossible special effects budget to make it work on some level at least. You can do a more toned down and realistic take on the Turtles like the 90s movie series. But the comics and cartoons have some wackier material that would make an MCU movie's scope blush. With the advent of modern effects and technology, it seemed like a natural progression to just go bigger, go crazier, go more excessive, and just see how it turns out. In 2014, after a hiatus from the big screen, TMNT once again hit theaters through the scope of a Michael Bay Transformers-esque expensive and explosive film. Did this new approach hit big with Turtles fans and general audiences alike? Not really, but they certainly tried their shot at redemption later. 2014's TMNT, no subtitle, hilarious poster, is a movie that miraculously no one remembers watching. The original quadrilogy had its problems, but was overall decently successful, and each movie had its own fans. Yet Viacom opted for a totally fresh approach that takes the Turtles back to their origin and brings them into the world of the 2010's blockbuster action cinema. The result is a film that felt like an AI-generated sequence of images based on other movies that were expensive and successful at the time, with a cast that just seemed like semi-noteworthy names picked out of a hat. Whoopi Goldberg is here. Except for Will Arnett as Vern, that was actually decent casting. I think he actually really fits that character. I still remember seeing this movie in theaters when I was like 15 and not really vibing with some of the major creative choices. And now today, with added context, a lot of other elements in here are unintentionally pretty funny to me. This movie's a pretty standard Turtles origin, with April stumbling upon the team, they save her and bring her back to the lair to deliver some exposition, and the five of them work together to stop Shredder from doing an evil thing. This time, Shredder is going to use the mutagen that created the Turtles to just make everyone in New York violently ill and die. Why doesn't it turn them into hilarious, mutated cartoon animal people? Then he'll have his rich friend, with the same name but Anglofied, sell the cure for big bucks. It's like that story you enjoy, but filtered through a few dozen other more generic and forgettable movies full of explosions, so it could hopefully be the next Transformers. Which it wasn't. Michael Bay did not direct these films. He only produced them. But it's so hard to detach the movie's visual style, sense of humor, and form of direction from him.
Oh, Mikey, was that you?
Pepperoni.
It feels like he directed these movies even if he didn't. It really feels like there was a concerted effort to make this look and feel like a Transformers film. The cinematography has these Dutch angles, panning shots, low-angle shots of explosions, blue lens flares, and golden hour orange lighting. Even the decision to make the turtles like 7 feet tall and have them constantly doing front flips and slow motion moves like Bay's Autobots seems kind of deliberate. And you can't forget filming Megan Fox like an object and giving the comic relief character disgusting comments to say about her.
So guys, if it wasn't already obvious with that girl, dibs.
Oh yeah, welcome to my crib, girl.
My girlfriend's totally the Hogo Shah.
Got a real nice song, it's all queued up. It's special, girl. For us.
Why is Mikey such a teenage mutant pig here?
Oh, she's so hot I can feel my shell tightening.
Chill, dude, Jesus. Please, God, stop making the turtles attracted to April. It's always the worst shit ever. Please stop. Please end it all.
Oh, bro, I've been trying to talk her into an interspecies relationships for months now.
Chill, man.
And she won't do it.
She can't hold her breath.
No, she can't do it.
The biggest problem is she can't hold her breath long enough, you know?
Well, okay.
The biggest and most dramatic change from all the previous versions of the material was the decision to make Oroku Saki into a white man born in Japan named Eric Sachs. Just that name change alone is so cartoonishly stupid and insulting. Imagine if they cast a white actor as Blue Beetle Jaime Reyes, and his name was just James Ray. I can't believe as late as 2014 they thought this was an okay way to reimagine the character. Alright, get your angry comments out now. Tell me I'm a snowflake for thinking they shouldn't cast a white guy as Oroku Saki. Fuck you. However, due to fan backlash and accusations of whitewashing, they added some clumsy last-minute reshoots and editing ploys to introduce Oroku Saki proper as a separate character and remove all of the scenes of Eric Sachs putting on the Shredder costume, so they could hopefully trick you into thinking they're separate characters. But it should be noted that every time they're on screen together, it's in this same dimly lit room in someone's house, with the Shredder actor completely in silhouette. I like to watch this over and spot all the tiny little ways it's really obvious that Sachs was Shredder. Alright, check this out. Every time someone verbally acknowledges that they're separate characters, it's an ADR voiceover added after the fact, playing over footage that they had available. You never see someone on screen say that.
In a few hours, Shredder is going to unleash all that stuff.
You know, sometimes it's just shots of Megan Fox staring off into space with a bored expression on her face. You also see shots of Eric staring at the suit, clearly about to put it on before it cuts. Shredder's voice is pure ADR, and we never see a person inside the costume, because there's no footage of someone getting in and out of it that isn't Eric Sachs. Sachs also walks around dressed in a black undershirt that just screams Tony Stark's clothes under the armor. Like, you see it, right? In the final cut of the movie, they awkwardly establish that Shredder is Eric Sachs' father figure and mentor, despite being 10 years younger than him.
Shredder practically raised Sachs in Japan. He's like a father to him. Sachs will do anything for his master.
Wait.
Sachs is just an extremely loyal follower of Shredder that uses his company's influence to serve their shared evil schemes. Sachs also spends a bunch of money buying his sensei a cool robot suit. Shredder's design is very reminiscent of this time period's obsession with adjusting every armored character to look more like an Ironmonger or a Transformer. You know, like Rhino and Silver Samurai. Big silver armored bad guys were all the rage. This actually makes him less intimidating as an opponent to me because it feels like the suit is doing all the heavy lifting in the fight, and the guy wearing it isn't that great of a fighter. Anyone's a badass if they're wearing a bulletproof suit that makes you 7 feet tall and covered in projectile knives. We've had versions of Shredder that are literally just robots, and they look cooler and more intimidating than this. The Turtles themselves are a mixed bag. I do honestly like their voices, and aside from Mikey's dialogue being consistently gross in every scene with April, I think their personalities are written properly. This voice for Donatello simultaneously reminds me of 80s, 2012, and Rise's voices for him. The way they chose to film this was even a really cool concept. Having the actors playing the Turtles in costumes on set and performing their lines and actions right alongside the human characters, just to have that motion and facial capture data used to animate the Turtles over them. Their suits are designed to have the right shape and size of the characters they're playing, and it just makes for a more realistic spacing and blocking with them. April and Vern are definitely looking at the right eye lines and spacing, so you never get the sense that the Turtles are just superimposed over that scene and the actors are staring at an empty space. It definitely feels like they're real and they're there. The way they touch and interact with physical objects, including other people, looks really believable. My favorite parts of the fight scenes are when the Turtles are fighting what are clearly other real people in suits. That stuff just creates a really cool illusion, and I think it's a great evolution of the body acting and puppeteering of the 90s movie. I'm always bitching about casting screen actors to play animated characters in big live-action Hollywood movies. But in a case like this, a screen actor is perfectly utilized because he's really emoting with his face, sharing a stage, and being in that location as the character. Raphael's voice has that same little reverb from being inside the car as April and Vern, and it really makes me believe he's in the room with them.
You're a talking turtle.
Yeah, I'm a talking turtle. And you're a human nerd. Now that we got that out of the way, hit it.
Never got accused of being a nerd before,
But for whatever reason, later in production, they redubbed all of Leo's lines with Johnny Knoxville. It's not a bad performance, but it's kind of a random decision. Like, you know, why that actor of all the millions?
Johnny Knoxville is going to jump the entire lake. He's amazing.
I was surprised that his voice does sound correct coming out of Leo's mouth, so it wasn't distracting, actually.
Do not say a word about this to anyone. If you do, we will find you.
Man, someone should have taught Steve-O how to voice act so he could have been Mikey.
Yeah, dude.
And then go on to have a career voicing Deadpool so that character can actually sound like he's described to. I don't care much for this script treating the audience like 5-year-olds and having characters stop and then reiterate all the relevant information we just learned out loud like it's Ultimate Spider-Man.
I saw him. I saw them. I saw them. And I've known them since I was a little girl. They were my pets. They were my childhood pets. And they were named after Italian Renaissance painters.
We've talked to death about the designs for the Turtles in these movies, but it bears repeating that this was a bit of a misstep. I'm in the minority opinion that I actually think their faces look fine. Leo, Raph, and Donnie in particular are pretty okay. Just something about Mikey's big toothy grin and humanoid lips has a Shrek-like feel to it, and I'm pretty sure his design in particular is the one that inspired the most disappointment and ire from fans. Somehow he looks the most human and the least like a turtle, so it creates a really uncanny valley effect in a way that the others kind of don't. I think they were going for making him most human, so he's the most, like, friendly, but it just looks kind of creepy.
I got a secret stash of Orange Crush behind the fridge. Don't tell Raph.
What I'm most irritated by is their height. They're 7 feet tall, at least. It's hard to remember they're teenagers when they're 3 heads taller than a grown adult in every scene. And these giant, bulky, muscular designs don't exactly shout stealthy for doing ninja things. They all have super strength and make such a massive thud with every footstep. Raphael is introduced by picking up a giant shipping container and swinging it like a baseball bat to knock out like 4 guys. Imagine seeing the Hulk try to sneak around on his tiptoes or climb on ceiling rafters to avoid detection, then pull out a tiny sword. Actually, every object they hold needs to be fucking massive. How big are Leo's swords if like a normal-sized person picked them up? The scaling is so weird. Pizza Hut doesn't have a pizza that's that big. And I think the look of each character is really blunt and simplistic and stupid with what it's trying to say, while also being very visually busy and complicated. Donatello is a nerd, so we gotta give him cartoonish taped up glasses and strap a million gadgets to him, like the AVGN accessories video, so you're always being beaten over the head with his personality. Raphael doesn't need to have sunglasses on at all times. He looks like fully upgraded Knuckles covered in bullshit. It's just too many accessories. There's this weird live-action design philosophy that more details equals more realistic, as if something looking simple makes it look more fake. This is why the Transformers are visually complicated walking junkyards with a billion moving parts, and superhero costumes are covered in textures, panels, and layers. Man, I'll take a G1 Optimus over that bullshit any day. April O'Neil now has an Amazing Spider-Man movie-esque backstory, where her father was a scientist involved with a secret project to test the mutagen on a lab rat and 4 turtles. I often hear people claim that she named them in this version, but I always interpret it more that her dad did because of the name of the project being Renaissance. I think she was just calling them that because he did. Oh wait, in the second movie she says she named them.
Excuse me, I named them.
So, I don't know. Nonetheless, she's secretly and conveniently the reason they were let loose into the sewers of New York, while Eric Sachs destroyed the lab and killed her father. I find it really forced and annoying that of all the millions of New Yorkers to bump into, this nosy journalist that would naturally be looking into something like this as a potential story is also the exact person who basically witnessed their entire origin story over a decade ago. Sometimes things are just random. April can just be a random reporter who meets the Turtles and is their friend, and that's it. That movie worked. Look, you can interpret the origin in a lot of various ways. Maybe Splinter was once a human ninja master named Hamato Yoshi. Maybe he learned ninjutsu because he was a normal rat that was Hamato Yoshi's pet that inadvertently absorbed years and years worth of training by just watching Yoshi from his cage. Maybe Splinter and the Turtles are the reincarnated souls of a ninja from feudal Japan and his 4 sons that were killed by Shredder several hundred years ago. Whatever. The story is supposed to be a little bit dumb. That's the goal. But all of these have one commonality. They give a good reason why Splinter knows how to be a ninja and teach it to the boys. Having him just find a book about ninjutsu in a storm drain is the goddamn worst version of his origin that's ever been told. What book was that? The Atlas Method? Shit, let me read so I can also defeat the Shredder in hand-to-hand combat. Just gotta read the book. Him and Shredder having no connection to one another whatsoever also makes for those characters interacting in very hollow ways. There's all this ninja battle trash talk, and I just can't help but feel like Shredder wouldn't even have the respect for this gross giant rat monster to, even try talking to him. If there's some kind of shared history, like they once knew each other as humans, or at the very least the rat permanently disfigured him, there's some reason for banter. Here it's just like Shredder is being sent in to fight this crazy sewer rat monster, and I don't buy that he'd have anything to say about that.
Very good, rat.
He just treated it as a job. For some reason in this universe, New York is a 20-minute drive from Alaska and completely frozen wilderness for hundreds of miles. The third act of this movie is where it feels like they really started plugging in just key terms in the script to auto-generate an explosive climactic action sequence, and it just turns into boring CGI sludge. After all the cool fight scenes of the Turtles interacting with real objects and humans in a way that looked believable, the last few minutes of this are just CGI characters on a CGI set, fighting with purely animated and simulated physics and the camera moving in ways a real camera couldn't possibly move. It sort of takes me out of the movie being a live-action film when the whole sequence looks like a PS3 cutscene and some shots just really don't sell visually. I think they could have dialed this back and included April, Vern, and more foot soldiers to at least have some tangible, real-life elements on screen during the action. I think those clumsy reshoots to get rid of Sax as the main villain kept them from being present, though. Instead of being the Shredder, he's just some dude that gets punched by Will Arnett in a little lab. He's not coming back for the sequel. Overall, it's not totally miserable to watch, but I hate so much of what they did here because it goes against what makes the Turtles appealing. Pulling them away from being stealthy and lean and turning them into hulking, super strong bruisers that deflect bullets seems like a choice made by someone who just saw Avengers and really wanted money.
Money!
The action ranges from exciting and serviceable to boring and overstimulating visual noise, and the movie's breakneck pace has no time to ever stop and treat anyone like a real character. Everyone's just a collection of one-liners and fast editing and whip pans and explosions and Dutch angles. No one's like an interesting person. Megan Fox as the lead didn't work well either because her version of April is just so empty. The whole movie is just shots of her with a blank expression just reacting to other characters saying things. You can never tell what's different about her emotional state in any particular one of them because it's always the same dull face. She seems so bored here, and I can't blame her because her character really isn't anything. She has no arc, she's not really developed in any substantial way, and she becomes largely irrelevant once the title characters start to take center stage. This wouldn't really improve at all going into the sequel, where she's not the main character anymore. She has less going on under the shell than in the last one, but that's actually okay. She's in the sequel just the right amount. This is an appropriate amount of April O'Neil. She's got about as much going on as she ever did in the animated series now. And she wouldn't be the only one. TMNT Out of the Shadows completely ruined the search engine optimization for that video game, making it impossible to Google ever again. This one is the anti-Secret of the Ooze, where the first film in each respective series was going for a more grounded and gritty approach, and the sequel pulls a lot from the 80s cartoon. It was the Secret of the Ooze's detriment because they took the cartoon's tone, but none of the actual cool stuff associated with the IP, like giant alien brain monsters and robots, and universe-hopping death machines, and a pig with sunglasses. It was a really small-scale movie that just felt like cheesy bullshit. Out of the Shadows learns from this by pulling tonal cues from the cartoon alongside the crazy, wacky, awesome Ninja Turtles crap you want to see. It sort of helps to justify their massive, unstealthy character designs if they can also be a little bit more silly and action-oriented. The 2014 film has the Foot Clan as just guys with guns and black masks. In this one, they're ninjas with modern-day technology. They're actually acrobatic and doing high-stakes missions instead of, like, taking hostages with firearms and holding them for ransom or something. Alongside the improvements made to the Foot, the Turtles themselves have also seen a bit of a glow-up. They're no longer hitting people with shipping containers or unrealistically nabbing people from the shadows like the Dark Knight. Here, they're shooting manhole covers out of a giant green garbage truck with animatronic remote-controlled nunchuck arms, and falling out of planes with green parachutes and a rocket skateboard. Even their designs are less cluttered this time, and Donnie seems noticeably thinner. It feels like this one knew what it was going for more, and was made by someone who actually gives a damn about the franchise instead of an algorithm mashing together blockbuster movie tropes. Although both of these still feel a lot like they were just trying to bite off a previously released Marvel movie. Yeah, they saw Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, they saw The Avengers. Weirdly, these TMNT movies seem out of date and trying to copy both of these. The weakest parts of this movie are pretty much everything that's not a mutated animal. They didn't have to include Casey Jones, and they really shouldn't have because he's a really cool character in everything outside of this, and I'd much rather be watching the version of him from the 80s show. He's fucking terrible in this! Cop Casey, ew!
That's Officer Jones, and I'm gonna be a detective someday.
Yuck. Even wearing his hockey mask, he just looks wrong. I know it was redesigned to be like an actual hockey mask that someone in real life could wear, but it just looks too big for his head and he doesn't seem intimidating wearing it at all. He never even gets injured while wearing it to begin with, so it could have just been cosmetic anyway. And he only wears the fucking thing for one scene. Great. Stephen Amell is also a really poor fit for that character. He's not like a lovable, dumb, tough guy like Casey. He doesn't have big himbo energy. I have this feeling he's not taking the movie he's in seriously, so he's always smiling while delivering lines where he shouldn't be. Pick up your bow and arrow and get the fuck out of here. You don't belong here. This movie could have gone from like a 5 to an 8 if you just cut him out entirely. He's the worst in every scene he's in. Kino could mop the floor with this asshole, and I'd cheer for him like he was an MCU cameo.
I clapped when I saw it.
Shredder has been recast with a much younger actor, Brian T., for more of an 80s cartoon Shredder feel. His cybernetic CGI garbage suit has been replaced with a bland-looking, colorless CW costume. I think the way the Shredder was handled in this movie is also pretty embarrassing. He never shares a single scene with the Turtles. He never fights them or even talks to them. In fact, he never talks to or interacts with any of the protagonists at all after the car chase sequence. He's just standing around the whole movie doing whatever dumb bullshit Krang asked him to earlier without a second thought. And then in the one scene where he's about to fight, He gets frozen and locked away for sequel bait. That never worked out. I have no idea why he's even in this movie if he was going to be so unimportant. I actually really like Brian T, too. I think he could have kicked ass as this character. Did you ever see him in that Mortal Kombat Legacy show as an evil version of Liu Kang? That was cool. He wears his helmet for like one scene in this whole movie, and the helmet covers way too much of his face. So let me get this straight. Shredder's voice comes out of this helmet crystal clear as day when he speaks.
No one will ever know who you are.
But Casey's mask with the 3 holes in front of his mouth is muffling his voice.
What's your name?
Casey Jones.
What's that?
Casey Jones? Oh.
Casey Jones.
What the fuck? I know this is a nitpick, but come on, man. Sound design is important. Don't half-ass that. It's hard to be immersed in a movie when there isn't consistency with those things. It makes the world feel artificial. Krang is here for a solid 45 seconds of screen time, and everything about his inclusion feels really rushed and underdeveloped. His alliance with Shredder happens so fast it's mind-boggling. The scene where they meet and he explains his plan is one of the most insane I've ever seen put to film. It's so fast and just bombards you with information. And he just says like 80 paragraphs of shit in like 10 seconds, and I can't keep up with it at all. And then Shredder's like, yeah, I'm down. That is the most out-of-breath exposition dump ever delivered, and having it dropped by a massive CGI brain monster in a robot in a spaceship after how toned down the first movie was is just crazy when you watch these back-to-back.
I'm interested. I will help you take down planet Earth.
Holy shit. Krang is also really only here to have a giant blue laser shoot up into a portal in the sky and drop in flying mechanical shit to look like the Avengers. The Technodrome is already pretty much a Death Star, but having it float and be completely gray is a step too far. It should have rolled in on the ground through a big triangle portal that opened on the street. This final sequence is even worse CGI sludge than the first one because they're fighting another big gray villain in a big gray room with a big gray sky, and nothing looks real or like it has any color. This fight sequence really just looks like a washed out 2010 video game. There's just so much here that doesn't work, but this movie has pretty long stretches of runtime that I do love. The screen just lights up with joy and excitement when the turtles themselves are on screen and interacting with each other. They're fun and energetic, their humor is more appropriate for their characters, they have more depth to their personalities this time around. Watching them is such a delight, and their fight with Bebop and Rocksteady midway through is the highlight of the film. For whatever reason, this is the scene where the VFX are at their strongest and the fight choreography is really exciting. But for the rest of the movie, it's shit like Casey Jones and the Foot Clan fighting, and it has a billion cuts because no one on set knew how to make a good action scene without help from a team of animators. Jesus Christ, watching this makes me want to throw up. It's so bombastic and shaky and stupid. Whenever the turtles aren't on screen, all other characters should be asking, where are the turtles? Because there's no movie without these guys. It's a good thing that the most interesting characters are the ones in the title, but it feels like such a drag whenever a human being has to do or say something, and you just want them to get off screen as fast as possible. Bebop and Rocksteady are awesome in this.
My man.
I think it's funny how they show up whenever Kevin and Peter don't have a say in the script. Peter Laird was pretty active with that 2003 cartoon, and they never even looked at a rhino. Having them feel so pulled directly from the animated show was really fun, and gave this movie a little bit more life and excitement than the first one did. I don't think they really need to be like 10 feet tall and throw cars, though. That's a bit excessive. Johnny Knoxville did not return to reprise his role as Leonardo, but the body actor and now the new voice, Pete Plazek, sounds really similar. It's pretty much the same voice but younger sounding, so it's actually better, I think.
Okay, what I want to know is, if a portal's gonna open up, what's coming through from the other side?
The big emotional conflict in this one is that the turtles are once again feeling stifled by having to constantly hide themselves and never interact with people or go outside in the daytime. Around the midpoint of the film, Donnie discovers he can use the TCRI mutagen ooze to potentially mutate them into humans so that they can have normal lives. and it causes a rift in the group because Leo thinks it's a bad idea, while Raph and Mikey want to give it a shot. I feel like there was some much earlier draft of the script where this conflict was more fleshed out and had one or all of them actually go through with the transformation. But in the final edit, they sort of get over it and abandon the thought for no real reason after a lot of arguing, and they don't have a scene of, like, coming together and finally getting on the same page. First, Raph and Leo are mad at each other, which mostly stems from Leo being a poor leader in this movie. Then randomly, after a fight with Bebop and Rocksteady, they all start fighting each other over, like, nothing. And then it comes time to finally decide what's done with the mutagen, and Leo's like, alright guys, whatever you want, and Raph decides they should just drop it. It feels like there's a scene missing. It's all swept away a little too easily. But it was at least a halfway interesting idea that no other Turtles media has really touched on before. Same goes with Leo being a poor leader, which isn't really explored often, but is also kind of half-baked. Raphael almost feels like he could have been better at it in this version, since he's actually the one who tries to confront Leo to talk out the problem, and then, like, Leo shuts him out after justifying wanting to lie to his brothers. He's kind of being an asshole for half of this movie, and you can't really get on his side.
And what about Mikey? He don't get a vote? There's only one vote that counts in this family. Mine.
Oh, and Baxter Stockman is in this movie. He doesn't really do much. I'm just glad he's here, though, and I like his bow tie. We needed something to balance out stupid fucking Casey! Does Eric Sachs not even get mentioned in this movie? What the hell? Maybe these turtles are also connected to a Batman universe and the Joker shot him between movies or something. I don't know. He's gone. Out of the Shadows is like a really messy, shitty movie, but there's some really good stuff in there that I want to see more of. You can feel that there was some passion somewhere behind the 30 faceless studio executives trying to make it in every Marvel movie that released in the previous 5 years. That first one felt like scenarios and visuals you've seen a million times before crammed into a soulless movie written by 3 people solely to capitalize on an IP. This one makes use of the source material in a way that can deliver some uniquely Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles paraphernalia in a way that nothing else released theatrically in 2016 could have. These companies that own all the characters we love can sometimes be really out of touch and ignorant of what they hold. They'll try to shape and mold what they have into something it isn't, purely based on whatever is a current trend, while forgetting that people are going to see it anyway based off the property. If I wanted to see a movie that felt more like a Batman or Spider-Man movie, I would have just gone to see one of those. But I came for Turtles, damn it. I like Turtles. And I'm glad they realized that this time, but it was too little too late. If this was the first one in this trilogy, there may have actually been a trilogy. The first movie was just barely successful enough to warrant a second one, but so mind-numbingly awful that it scared everyone away from seeing that sequel. Public opinion on this outing is so overwhelmingly bad, even almost a decade later, so this series will probably never see a secret legacy film like that first one. Looking forward, it seems like TMNT will be in some capable hands for their next theatrical endeavor. Seth Rogen has proved himself a few times as a reliable, seemingly hands-on producer over at Amazon with Invincible and The Boys. Rogen is the perfect age to have grown up with these characters, and with rumors of the Turtles being more of an amalgamation of everything we've seen before personality-wise, sounds like there will be a lot of love for the franchise behind that project. Turtles hit highs and lows. It's a series that rises and sets. It has 2 not-so-awesome movies in a row, and then a pretty good animated one. So let the cycle continue! Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Follow me on Patreon. Turtle Power.